Okay, guys, we are on to the 5th of our 10 or 11 videos taking you through the process of developing your rapport de stage. So this number 5 is on what we call the literature review of the literature, or secondary research. Those two terms mean the same thing. Why do we say secondary research? Well, primary research is something that you do yourself, and we haven't come to that yet. Secondary research is stuff that other people have done, and they've already published. It's out there in the public domain. You can read it, you can access it. It's perhaps been looked at and tested and proven to work, etc. Now, if stuff already exists, well, clearly, we should not reinvent the wheel. We should use it. So our first task is to ask ourselves the question, okay, this is my title. These are my aims and objectives. What do we already know? Clearly, in the future, once we've done this research, we will find there's a lot of stuff we know, but there will quite probably be quite a lot of stuff that we don't know. That becomes a menu for you to go and chase that information down, find it somewhere, interview people, survey, questionnaires, etc., etc. That is primary research. That's for later, not now. So our first task is to know what is already known about our topic and the aims and objectives that you have articulated yourself. Well, how to do that? Well, it's easy. You've done the difficult work already. The difficult work was to actually identify aims and objectives that add up to the whole of your title. So in front of you, if you look at your aims and objectives, you'll have a hit list of topics, things you need to go and find out, things you need to get to know. So you take the first one off the top and you ask yourself the question, right, I need to go looking for what is known on that subject. So you go looking. You don't just pick up 2 or 3 sources and slam them down. You ask yourself the question, does that fully cover everything I need to know, that aim and objective? Is that in fact the best source, or is this one an even better one? You need not just to cite and attribute the literature that you're reviewing, but you need to critique it. Is it in fact what you need? Does it give you a full and complete answer? Well, if you're asking general questions like the principles of marketing, well, pretty much we know all of those. If you're asking something highly specific, very localized, related to a particular country, related to a particular company, related to a particular business function, we may know a lot less about that. Perhaps it hasn't been written about at all yet. So in other words, if you take this objective, you're logging here the things that you do know, and here, the things you don't know. You need to be able to articulate for each of your aims and objectives what you have found and we do know, and what specifically it is we still don't know. Well, generally speaking, as I said, general objectives we will know a lot about. The more specific you get, the less you will know. So if you have a fairly general objective, perhaps 95% of it we know. There's just this little bit that we would be helpful to find out. But when you get down to something highly specific, you may know 10% and you may be missing 90%. So you need to look at each one of your aims and objectives and do that calculation. Review the literature. What do we know? What don't we know? Articulate what that is. And then at the end of your literature review chapter, You haven't just thrown together a few quotes and said, there, I've looked at the literature. At the end of that, you have before you a menu of things that are not known and which you need to be able to deal with each one of these aims and objectives. In other words, you have a hit list for your primary research. So you need to articulate that at the end of the literature review. I'll say it again. It's not there to impress an academic that you've read a few things that people like us have written. It's there to help inform you as regards your own aims and objectives. And you have to identify what is well known and what we don't know. So if you add up the stuff we don't know from objective 1, objective 2, objective 3, objective 4, objective 5, 6, 7, however many, you now have your own personal hit list for your primary research. Well, that's the beginning of that. But before you rush off and do that research, we now need to move on to our next topic, which is primary research methodology. You don't just go away and do what you think. You need to be able to work out what the best way is, or the best ways are, to find this information and to be sure that you can rely upon it. That is on our next video on primary research methodology. Thank you very much.